polite of you to clap. Welcome along to this very special episode of the Transfer Talk podcast, our first ever live episode in front of a live studio audience. It is great to have you here tonight. We're going to have some very special guests alongside myself on these couches behind me. We're going to talk about the deals that did and didn't happen in this January transfer window. We'll also take a little trip down memory lane and get them to relive some of their transfer stories. There'll be an opportunity for you guys to ask some questions as well as we come to the end of the first half of this Transfer Talk podcast. But yeah, great to have so many Sky VIP competition winners here as well. We really hope you enjoy this evening and have some fun. But yeah, let's get to it, because it's my pleasure to introduce the first member of this Transfer Talk team, Dharmesh Sheth, my very own Sky Sports News colleague, the man who knows everything there is to know about transfers. Please welcome him onto the stage.
What they say?
I don't know if they know who you are, actually.
I have no idea.
So, Dharmesh, the window closed on Friday night. How did you find it?
Tiring, eventful. If your name was Fernandez, Jetson or Bruno, it was very eventful. And then Odion Ighalo joined Manchester United. Just let that sink in. Odion Ighalo joined Manchester United.
Yes.
That sums it up.
It does indeed, it does indeed. And this is actually a real pleasure for Dharmesh and myself, because usually, just to give you a little insight, if you listen to the Transfer Talk podcast, we're actually usually in something that resembles a bit of a broom cupboard. It's probably about 1 metre by 2 metres, so we've got to know each other pretty well over the last month doing the Transfer Talk podcast in very close proximity to each other. So it's great to have a bit of breathing space, isn't it?
Exactly. We've often knocked knees, haven't we?
Yeah, we might just stand this far apart, actually, just because...
Dave Reed, of course, is a podcast host as well over there. Stand up, Dave. And he'll know all about that broom cupboard that we use.
Yes. Right. Shall we move on? Because it's not just Dharmesh and me that are on stage, because the people that you actually do want to see and hear from tonight are just waiting behind the wings. Two men that know everything there is to know about Chelsea. It's our absolute pleasure to welcome them alongside us tonight.
Before you
Dharmesh?
introduce them.
Yes.
They are
Build
two footballing legends, and we'll get an idea of the allegiances of the people in this room just now. These guys have played for some of the biggest clubs in the world. Who wrote that? Chelsea? Wow. Leeds United? Tottenham? This one will get a cheer. Barcelona. Everyone loves Barcelona. And Atletico Madrid. They have got a combined 450 goals between them.
Yes, they don't really need much more introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Eidur Gudjohnsen and Floyd Hasselbaink. Well, we do have loads to get through tonight, lots and lots to talk about. Just to give you a rough idea of what's going on in part one, we're going to be looking at the fallout from another dramatic deadline day, because there were a couple of things that happened last minute. Dharmesh already mentioned Ighalo, but yeah, plenty of other things to get into there. We'll take a look at the business or lack of business at these guys' old club Chelsea, get their thoughts on what Frank Lampard has done in this window. Manchester United, they were the biggest spenders. Was it money well spent? That we might be discussing that one for a little while, and we'll also be answering, as I said, some of your questions. We'll then have a short break. You can grab yourself a little bit of a refreshment before we get going again, and then that is when we'll come back and take a trip down memory lane and get some of Eidur and Jimmy's transfer stories from over the years. So we can't wait to get into that. One place to start, though, that is deadline day. Guys, were you standing by your phones? Chelsea needed a striker.
Not me, I don't know about him, but not me.
I could barely get on stage.
Just give us an insight. What is it like for footballers on transfer deadline day?
I've personally never been really in the position of that I wanted to move, or that I, on that day, that I needed to move, or that I needed a fresh challenge or whatsoever. So it's difficult for me to say, but I can imagine when you are at a club like, for instance, Fernandes at Sporting, and you see the days going by, and the 31st is coming, that you know, it's really nerve-breaking, and you're anxious. You want that move to happen. You know, must be very nerve-breaking.
And I wonder, even if you're not involved in a move on deadline day, are you keeping an eye on the telly? Are you watching Sky Sports News just to see what is going on, who's moving where?
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
The answer is yes, of course. You know, we all follow the game, whether we're playing or not. We still follow all the news, and we have the man here who gave us all the news. Yeah. So it is exciting. It is exciting, especially when it leads up to the last minutes. There's always a few last-minute deals that go through. And of course, I had a few deadline day transfers. One decent one not so good. Get into that a bit later on.
Yeah, we will indeed.
Can you give us a little tease?
One was back to the Premiership from Monaco, which I really enjoyed. And the other one was to Stoke.
Aside of your own ones on deadline day, aside of your own ones on deadline day, what was your most memorable deadline day? Say you're watching Sky Sports News and you've just gone, wow, has that just happened?
I always remember the footage of Berbatov at Old Trafford. I think that's the one that always sticks in the memory.
The one for me that sticks was the one that didn't go through. The boy that went to QPR.
Odemwingie.
Oh,
Odemwingie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
You
we
remember
all remember that? Yeah.
He drove to QPR and there was no transfer.
I thought we've agreed something and it was going to happen, so I didn't, to be honest, I didn't expect to be in front of cameras.
I don't think we've ever had this before in a transfer deadline night. West Brom striker Pierre Odemwingie is trying to force through a deadline day move to Queen's Park Rangers.
I'm happy with the trust, you know, that the manager Harry Redknapp is giving me. You know, it's interesting.
Will you definitely be a QPR player as of this evening?
Well, it's not 100%. It's not sorted yet, but I hope West Brom will be happy with what they will get.
The window is shut.
Yeah, I remember that.
Or pizza.
Dharmesh, let's get your insights. I mean, Eidur mentioned it there. You're the man that brings everyone their news on Sky Sports News on deadline day. Who do you think were the biggest winners this month?
I would say, first of all, I would say Sheffield United were one of the biggest winners. If you were to predict in the summer that Sheffield United were going to bring in 5 players and they were going to break their transfer record for Sander Berg for £22 million, you would actually be thinking that Sheffield United would be in a lot of trouble. They'd be fighting relegation if you thought they were going to bring in 5 players. They are actually signing players from a position of strength. They've had such a fantastic start to this season. So they may have gone into the season with a lot of championship players and thought, let's see how it goes. And it's gone brilliantly, and now they've gone up that level, I think. And bringing in someone like Sander Berg, I don't know whether you guys are familiar with how good this guy is, but he's well regarded throughout Europe. What do you make of that signing?
I played against him, actually. It was my last season when I played for Molde in Norway under Solskjaer. We went to play against Vålerenga, the club's called, and you could see the talent straight away. Great touch on the ball, sees everything around and what's going on. He's a great addition not only to Sheffield United but to the Premier League and for the future as well.
The other two, I would say, I know there's a lot of Liverpool fans in probably Liverpool, because when you look at Liverpool now, it kind of reminds you of what Manchester United were like at their pomp. My cousin is a Liverpool fan. Yeah. And because what Fergie used to do, and he'd build up his squad and it would just evolve his squad. There wouldn't be a real revolution with his squad. And what did Liverpool do? Minamino, 1st of January, business done. That's their signing for the winter.
And that's what I really like about Liverpool at the moment. They have got their plan and they execute it. They know who they're going to get. They know what they want. And the whole month they don't bother anymore with the transfer window, and everybody is still fighting, and they are concentrating really actually only on their football. And it's so important with the recruitment. Recruitment is the most important thing, you know, at the club, and at the moment they have got it right.
It's interesting you say that. Just on Jurgen Klopp himself, if you look at his transfer history with Liverpool, yes, everyone has made mistakes, but the Virgil van Dijk situation and the Alisson situation just highlights how good Liverpool have been, because when they first went for Virgil van Dijk, there was all the controversy about there was an illegal approach with Southampton. And a lot of Liverpool fans I noticed on social media, when Virgil van Dijk didn't get signed, is he the only centre-half in the world? Why they're not going for anyone else? But he waited, didn't he?
He waited, but that's something else as well. That was done. That deal was done. Or Jurgen Klopp spoke to Virgil way before him, you know, and persuaded him, because everybody was after him. Chelsea was after him. Man United was after him. Everybody was. Liverpool was after him, but he chose for Liverpool. And way before he signed, he says, "No, I'm going to Liverpool." And we were all asking. I spoke to him. I asked him, "Why Liverpool?" It's done. I've spoken to Klopp, and that connection with Klopp and him was straight away there from minute one.
It's similar to, remember when Ruud van Nistelrooy was going to Manchester United?
Yeah.
So he's about to sign for Manchester United from PSV. Spoke to Alex Ferguson already. Has a cruciate knee ligament injury, and the deal falls through 18 months later. First player Ferguson wanted to sign. So it's those Klopp, Ferguson's, you know, the best managers, they find their guy and they will do everything to get him, because they will put their belief in that particular player.
So, Dharmesh, you said they're Sheffield United, Liverpool, big winners. Just quickly, who do you think will be most disappointed with this window?
Tottenham will be pleased as well, I think, apart from not getting a striker in. Danny Rose left. Christian Eriksen, they got some money for. Losers-wise, sorry, but Chelsea probably will be frustrated. And I guess Everton will be frustrated as well, because I think they, with Carlo Ancelotti taking over, would have been really hungry to get into the market to bring some new players in. But Chelsea and Everton, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of joked at the start there, were you expecting a call? Because Chelsea, they did want to bring in a striker, they need a striker. How much do you think they'll regret that decision not to bring someone in?
I don't know. Well, obviously they would want to get somebody in and let a few go. But the most important thing is getting the right person in, and somebody who's going to improve your squad. You cannot just bring in a number or a body. If you do that, you're going to be doomed, because you have to bring in somebody that is going to lift the other players, that is going to give proper competition to other players. And I think they couldn't get nobody. You know, what is a pity. You know, they could have done with some more firepower.
You say give the club a lift. Dries Mertens and Edinson Cavani were two names that were mentioned. They would have given Chelsea a lift, wouldn't they?
Well, Mertens is not a striker, he's a winger. So I think that would have depended on Pedro maybe leaving. There was question marks of him maybe leaving Chelsea in January. And then talking about the striker, first of all, who? Giroud has to leave probably to make way for a new signing. So it all holds hands, you know. One has to leave, one comes in. And the fact that probably what it missed is one player moving, and we would have seen a bit of a domino effect of 2 or 3 leaving. In the end, whether Chelsea have lost out on not signing, only time will tell, because we've seen players come in, especially in this January window, throughout the history of the recent history of the Premier League, where it hasn't worked out, where they haven't been able to adapt to whether it's coming from a different country into the Premier League or moving between clubs. Wasn't it Sanchez who moved from Arsenal to Manchester United? Wasn't that in January? And I think that's the best example where we all knew Alexis Sanchez was amazing for Arsenal and moved in January, whether that has anything to do with it, and never really adapted to life in Manchester. So there's so many aspects, and we've seen many players come in the last minute of a window, and some of them we've never seen again.
And you mentioned that domino effect, and the domino in this one at Chelsea was Olivier Giroud, because if he had moved, we perhaps would have seen other things happening. Were you surprised that he didn't move, bearing in mind, you know, he's not getting the game time at Chelsea? He'll have an eye on the Euros. He wants to play.
Well, we all want to play, don't we?
Yeah. When you're part of it, you want to play. Obviously, he wants to be part of the French national squad, so I think that's why he wanted to move, because he's not getting any opportunities. But Frank has to think about Chelsea, and he needs 3 strikers on the book. And he can't let Giroud go if there is nobody else coming. And as hard as it is for Giroud, he's contracted to Chelsea. To be honest, he's doing that really well, and he is being a great professional. And what he has to do is push for that place that he get those opportunities, and that's, I think, in a way that Frank wants as well, an angry player who does the right things on the pitch, because that is going to give the best for the team, isn't it? So it's not easy. It must be very hard for Giroud, but he's got no option to get his head down and battle.
I was surprised with Giroud that the option for him, or what seemed to be the biggest option for him, was to go to Inter Milan, where he would have probably been in a similar situation to Chelsea, where you have Lukaku, they've had 3-4 strikers in front of him as well. So in any big club you're going to have competition, but sort of moving from this situation probably into the same situation in Italy, maybe wouldn't have been the right decision.
Do you think the one subtle difference might have been that, like Frank Lampard has said, he's a great professional, saying all the right things, and yet he's not in the 18-man squad at Leicester City, whereas Antonio Conte actually bought him to Chelsea 2 years ago. He would have featured in the 18-man squad, wouldn't he?
I think when a manager signs you and has signed you before, there is a connection there. You know each other, you know how to work with each other, and you know what to expect of each other. So probably would have played a bigger role than not being in the squad at the weekend. But I'll go back to it. Is Giroud, what is it, 32, 33 maybe?
33, I think.
What could be his last major championship at the Euros. So I'm sure he's desperate to get those minutes in. Whether he will earn them or receive them at Chelsea, it's difficult to say.
It's difficult to say, but football is a strange game. You know, 1 minute you are nobody, and the other minute you get this opportunity and you score a hat-trick, and now out of a sudden you are the man and you get games, you know. So it can change like that. The thing that he has to do, he has to make sure that he is fit, ready for when he gets that opportunity. As hard as it sounds, you know, as frustrated as it is, but when he is going to be called on, he needs to be making sure that he is in the best shape and in the best frame of mind to keep that place.
And of course it was the first window that Chelsea were able to sign players after that transfer ban was lifted. Nothing got done. Is that just showing that Frank Lampard is happy with his squad? Because they are very much going with this project of developing the youth.
I think he's very happy with his squad, and he's very happy with the youth who is coming through, but I definitely think that he would want some players in, quality players that would improve his squad, but also players who would help the younger players. I think he was looking for somebody with more experience to help the younger players, and I just think that he could not get value for money. What is very important as well, Chelsea is not the club anymore to just throw money at it, and it's the business model that they are looking at. So coming back to your question, I definitely think that Frank would have wanted 1 or 2, players in.
Just generally on Frank Lampard, you obviously played with Frank Lampard. The qualities he showed there, he was one of the leaders of that football club when you were there. Did you ever foresee Frank Lampard, manager of Chelsea?
Yes. We did. I think because of the characteristics. He's a very intelligent man. He's very stubborn. He's, stubborn in a good way is to say, right, this is my decision, and he'll stick with it. He was, and I would say, also selfish in a good way as a player. That, he had such drive to make the most out of everything that he had, and that's what made him the player that he became at Chelsea. Because when he arrived, and I've said this a few times, I thought it was the worst £11 million we'd spent.
Wow.
I'm not sure I was right there.
No, no, but yeah, he was overweight.
No, but so were we.
So were we. Yeah.
So are we.
No, yeah. Now, yes, now. No, but at the time when he came over, he was overweight, and he worked so hard on his game, and he became the player that he was, that he is now, and we remember the players around him made him better. He was like a sponge, Obviously, he had the talent. He had the talent already, but it was all raw in the first few months. But that sponge soaked so much in, and very quickly, I was a little bit surprised that he wanted to become a manager. I didn't think that he would do it, because we all know Frank is a very rich guy. Does he need that aggravation? Does he need that? But he's got football in his blood, and what he is doing now, how they are playing, I love watching Chelsea. I love their identity. They go forward. I love how the youngsters play. Obviously, they are creating a lot of chances, and they need to score more goals. But I understand what he's trying to do, and how he's trying to play. There's not one match that he's not trying to win, and that has been different in the past, So yeah, I'm pleasant surprised.
Just picking up on what you said yes, you thought he could become the manager of Chelsea back then, even more so than John Terry.
Different characters.
Different characters, not more so. It was one or the other. When you asked me about Frank, we went for a coffee after training one day and sat around talking about we were getting, we were 26, 27, so what we're going to do after our career.
Getting on, 26, 27.
As in, thinking about the future then. And I say, you think you're going to management? He goes, yes. How long are you going to play? Top level till I'm 37, and then I'm going to management. And this is 15 years ago he said that. I believed him then, and that's why I say his work ethics as a player, and you can see the same work ethics in the Chelsea team today. That reminds me of how Frank used to play.
So looking at this season then under Lampard, do you see them finishing in the top four? I mean, it's looking good at the moment.
It's not going to be easy. They are still, I think, 3 points ahead. They're playing Tottenham, and it is not, is it 4?
Yeah.
It's not only Tottenham, but they're playing Tottenham on the 22nd. That's going to be a very important match.
Manchester United 5 days before.
Manchester 5 days, yeah. So it is going to be important that they sort their home form out, that they win their matches at home. If they do that, I think that they will have a really good chance of getting forward. And then if we get forward with everything that has happened, I think it's like winning the league. It's not winning the league, but nobody expected that. And then on top of that, the way how he is playing, the way that Chelsea is playing, on top of that, even makes it even better. So I hope he does it, yeah.
We spoke there about Chelsea's struggle to bring in a striker. There were similar problems at Manchester United. They ended up turning to China for what was described as a smash and grab deal, I think it was, bringing in former Watford striker Odion Ighalo. Jimmy, I mean, Odion Ighalo, a Manchester United player, how does that sit with you?
He must be the luckiest. Going to China, being away from Europe, nobody seeing him. I think it's 2.5 years, isn't it, that he was last at Watford. And then getting a loan move to Man United. Wow. You know, that doesn't happen. But that says, for me, how far Man United is behind Liverpool and Man City and even Chelsea. You know, they've got a big job ahead. They needed somebody in. And I think he was not number one. He was not their number one. And I would be surprised if he was their number 2 or 3 as well. So, but look, he's getting an opportunity and he will definitely get minutes. And we will see if he can do it.
Can you believe how far they've fallen, Eidur?
Well, it comes back to the time of the season of this transfer as well. I don't think any of the best strikers are available. But when you ask the question how far Manchester United have come or fallen back, I don't think any of the best strikers are eager to join Manchester United anymore.
That's a big statement.
Yeah, that's
the biggest thing.
That's what tells us the biggest story. You know, Ighalo, we know him. He did very well for Watford. Going to play in China, I actually played there for 6 months, and I had to come back to play with the national team. And I felt after 2-3 months that I wasn't ready for the international break, as in the pace of the game is just so much slower. So then you go and think, well, if he's going to play games for Manchester United as well, he's going to need a bit of time to catch up, to adjust, and before you know it, the season's over. But it's a great opportunity. What a great opportunity for him, and you know, he's got absolutely nothing to lose. Going to play for arguably one of the biggest clubs in the world, so wish him all the best.
What I don't understand is Man United. It's Man United. You know, they have lost Lukaku. They knew that they were losing Lukaku ages ago. They knew that they needed a striker for a long time. You know, I don't know how much money they have, but it is Man United. Why are you not going to get, if you need goals straight away, go and throw money at Ings, for instance. You know, he's flying at the moment. Or Jimenez from Wolves, throw money at that. You know, you were in the market for Haaland. Haaland chose Dortmund. That's what I don't understand.
He scored 7 goals in 3 games as well.
Only 7 goals. Coming from the bench.
Was it a debut hat-trick as well, I think, in his first game? Yeah.
Okay, I know Haaland has got a difficult agent and they don't want to deal with him, but sometimes you have to play with the devil, you know, to get things right at your club.
I mean, someone they did throw a bit of money at was Bruno Fernandes. That was their number 1 target. It was a bit of a protracted deal in the end, but they did get it done. You mentioned that transition from China for Odion Ighalo. This guy, I mean, he's been touted as one of the best players in Portugal at the moment. How will he find that transition to the Premier League? I mean, we saw him play yesterday. I think people were quite impressed with what he did.
I think the quality that he shows, you can see that straight away. First game, you can't judge anyone after one game, but straight away you can see the quality that he possesses, and he looks like he will have no difficulty fitting into the way Manchester United play. Whether he is the man to drive the whole team forward, it might be too big of a task for just one player. Yeah. I think Manchester United need much more than just one quality player. They need to find a way to resurrect Pogba, because you can criticise him as much as you want, but when he's on top form, he is an absolute world-class player.
But he also needs players around him.
Yeah, of course.
You know?
Do you think Pogba's been let down?
I wouldn't go as far. I think it...
But no, by the transfer policy of United. Because he gets a lot of blame, doesn't he?
Well, he does.
Because he's the star.
Because he is their biggest asset. and they haven't gotten enough out of him so far. Plus the injuries, they don't help, so it's a bad situation. But going back to Fernandes, I think he possesses quality in numbers and will be more than good enough to play for Manchester United.
And what about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? Because you mentioned that he signed you for Molde. How did he persuade you to make that move?
Well, it was a situation where I'd turned 37. or just about to turn 38, I think. I was coming back from China, and I had to prepare for the European Championship because I wanted to finally go to a European Championship and beat England.
And did?
No, but so that was sort of a goal of mine before I call it quits. Right, I'm going to be in that squad finally, after 20 years in the national team. Now that they're going, I'm going to go with them. Spoke to Solskjaer and he said, "Listen, you're exactly what I need. A bit of experience, a little bit of quality left. Let's do it for 6 months and see if you want to carry on. Then you just come back after the Euros."
You don't have to run.
I had to run when I played with you, I know.
Exactly.
Just on Ole, we obviously played under him. We talked about Frank Lampard. Yes, I can see how he could become Chelsea manager. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Manchester United manager. Did you ever think that would happen?
I really enjoyed playing for him. It's completely different because it's Norway. It's all a lot smaller and friendlier, and a younger group of players where we didn't have big characters. We're sort of a young group that is developing. So the job that he did there was fantastic, but the job that he has now is just a completely different world because you're dealing with being one of the biggest clubs in the world, all the history, legend there himself, and then you see all the problems that are going on within the club. So whether it's too big for him, I don't know. Wonderful guy. I love him to bits. The only worry that I have is he too nice? Because I never got the hairdryer off him because we're similar age probably, but I haven't experienced him in that way, so difficult to say.
Right, let's move on. Eidur, it's been a mixed window for another one of your old clubs in Tottenham. They lost Christian Eriksen. I just wonder from a player's perspective, I mean, everyone knew that Eriksen wanted to leave. Whether you're that player that's pushing for the move or a teammate of that player, what does it do to the team when there is this speculation over a player in a January window? Does it affect the team?
Well, it can, especially when it's one of your biggest stars or most influential players. But I think even before the season started, the question marks surrounding Eriksen were already there. And there were already doubts whether he'd be at Tottenham at the start of the season. So, and then we'd go on for 5-6 months, and the writing was on the wall. And I think he didn't look the same player as he did a year ago or 2 years ago when he was committed to being a Tottenham Hotspur player. I don't think his head was there anymore, and you know, these things happen. Players and clubs part ways.
And I mean, Mourinho, he managed to get a couple of players in, Gedson Fernandes and Steven Bergwijn. It didn't get a like-for-like replacement for Harry Kane. And I guess, I mean, this window, it seemed to be about strikers. Everyone was looking for a striker and they didn't necessarily get them. Is it similar to Chelsea that you just think it was because the right player wasn't available?
Yeah, I think that for Tottenham, it is the hardest position to get really what you want. You have to plan really months and months before, you know, to get that player and starting to talk to agents and really following him. I don't think that Tottenham had that time because it was only after Harry Kane got injured that they started looking. So
don't you find that strange though?
Yeah.
All of a sudden They've got
it is
one of the best strikers.
It is strange, but they have tried it now for several years to get somebody behind Harry Kane. Everybody knows that they're not going to play. You know, that Harry Kane is going to play. And
if you were a striker now, would you join Tottenham?
It depends where I'm playing.
Harry Kane comes... Harry Kane...
No, which club I'm playing. Sorry. Which club I'm playing, you know?
Harry Kane, when he's fit, he plays,
Yeah.
it seems. If you were a striker now, would that put you off joining, to let the club allegiance out of the way?
If I am a Portuguese player at Boa Vista or Sporting even, or whatever, then I would. But if I'm already playing in the Premiership at a quite a big club, then, and my career is going in the right direction, then I would say no, because I need to play. I need minutes on the pitch.
Isn't that the problem Spurs have got then?
That's the problem. That's what I mean. You know. So, but then still, for me, as Eidur is saying, you still have to have a list for if something happens, because something can happen. You know, and clearly they didn't have that, or they couldn't get their main man. But they've brought in a couple of players. Bergwijn is a very good player. He's 22. He's that kind of player that Spurs would like to invest in, because they can see growth in that, and he's got still a lot to learn, you know. So I think that's a good buy, and it freshens things up, you know. It's a new face coming in. It gives other people, you know, a little lift.
And I wonder, when teams are trying to attract players, how much of an influence does the manager have? Like, if you're looking for a club, Jose Mourinho is managing Tottenham, does that then make Tottenham a more desirable destination?
I think it's a massive thing. If Jose calls you up and say, I want you at my club, I see you playing there, this is what I expect from you, and you're gonna be, you know, that is massive, you know. That is so important for a player. Forget about the monies and stuff, you know. Forget about the contract. That is the most important thing, you know, when the manager gives you a call directly himself and speaks to you about the tactical side and how he sees you and where he sees you and how he can improve you and stuff and all those kind of things.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. Plus the fact that they're a very big club, great stadium, pushing to be in that top 4 in the Premier League. So, of course, it's always attractive a great feeling when you get the call from the manager himself, because then automatically you think, right, it's not just the club, or it's actually the manager himself that want me to join the club.
Right, that is it. Almost time up for part 1 of this live episode of the Transfer Talk podcast. Before we take a break, we're going to get some questions from the audience. You guys were filling them in before you came and sat down. We've just picked a few out. So we're going to start with one. This is for both of you, from Stuart Plant from Eidur. Stuart, where are you in the audience? Where is he? There he is. So Stuart, you have asked, who is the best player you have ever played with? And he's added, not including Lionel Messi.
Ronaldinho. It was just a magician. I think at his best, he could do just about anything with the ball, and whatever he did, when we sit at home, or we're playing the computer. I haven't played for years, but we sit at home thinking or daydreaming about, if I'd just get the ball 40-yard cross on my chest, overhead kick, and then do a back flick as I'm doing it. That's what he would have done in training or in the game. He could do anything.
Jamie, what about you?
I have to say Valeron at Atletico Madrid. Played only 1 year with him. But he was such a clever player, you know. Somebody who always found space between the lines and did nothing, absolutely nothing physically. Absolutely nothing. but you know, when he had the ball, he would know already what he was going to do and did it. And he's one of those kind of players that he likes to give an assist more than score, and I like those kind of players.
Right, Jonathan Gould from Billericay, there he is up the back. He's asked, what's the best goal you scored for Chelsea? What's the most memorable goal?
The obvious one is an overhead kick that I scored
Against
Leeds. But there's a few difficult to choose one, but I really like one that I scored, and I want to say we scored at Southampton, where we started. I think I played a 1-2 with Makelele, and then another 1-2 with Didier Drogba, and ran round him, and it was just such a team goal that it gave it. That's what made it so great. That's one of my favourites.
Before we get to yours, Jimmy, can you explain what the celebration was about? Was that planned when you... Can you give us an example, just very quickly?
Just cool as ice.
Okay.
I don't know.
There's no like practice rehearsal.
No, actually, it was, and this is stupid, but I watched Friends, you know. The series.
yes.
And I think Joey put on Chandler's clothes, all of his clothes, and he just, could I be wearing any more clothes?
Oh gosh.
Jimmy, what about yours?
It's difficult. It's hard.
So many.
Yeah, but not only that. Not only that. It's just if I have to, the goals against Tottenham, but you know. Yeah. The goal against Man United at Man United, the volley.
Ranieri's first game.
Ranieri's first game, yeah. Yeah, it's one of those, you know.
Good time to move on then.
Your celebrations, did you work on any of those?
I just had no idea what to do.
He
He
worked incredibly hard on the dance move, on this amazing dance move that he did about once or twice, and we thought, no, Jim, no, this isn't going to work.
There was a little somersault, wasn't there? And their slow
there
motion.
was all kind of things.
Yeah, that was good, though.
It was good. You liked that one?
Yeah, that was nice.
Right, Farhad Sukal from St Albans. Question is, who was the toughest defender you played with or against in the Premier League?
Well, with John Terry. Against, I would say Sol Campbell, probably. I thought he was a beast. He was so strong physically, pace, and it was just very difficult to handle.
Jimmy, what about you?
I have to say Rio. Never really had, maybe once in all those years, had one really good game against him. And he was always one of those that would speak against you, you know, in a game, and say silly things like, it's another day, a walk in the park today, you know, things like that, you know, he would say.
I thought you meant trash talking or something.
So, yeah, I must say Rio.
Did you guys engage in any of that?
Trash talking?
Did you try and take the mick out of the defenders, or?
No, not
We used to speak Dutch on the pitch, so they couldn't understand us, and it worked. You know, so
we did it in the dressing room as well, when we didn't want anyone to understand us. But no, we didn't really get into trash talk, as in no.
Too nice.
Very polite.
All right, time for one more. Dan from Sutton is here as well. There he is. Dan, I would like to know, who's the best manager that you ever played for?
Well, I want to say Jose Mourinho, because when he came to the Premier League and came to Chelsea, it was just a revolution. I think he took Chelsea as a club to a different level. It was after Abramovich came in, so we all knew at the time about the spending powers at Chelsea and how much would change, but I don't think the club would have taken those steps, or such big steps, if it wasn't for Jose Mourinho coming in and bringing in players, but turning the players that were already there into champions. After, what was it, 50 years not winning the league. It was, I think that was such a statement, and that's what, you know, moments we had with him that we'll always cherish. Guardiola, on the other hand, because he's the obvious one, I would say very similar in thinking of all the details, almost obsessed about the details, slightly more attacking. I think Jose is more of a result manager than Guardiola would. He tries to make us believe that he would be happy if he plays a good game and lose, but I'm not buying it. But I think just Jose would be slightly more upset when he loses. Make sense?
Yeah. Jimmy, best manager?
For me, Hiddink. Had him at the Dutch national squad in '98, and he just, was just different. And you're talking about details. Was like quite free for a Dutch manager, but everything was detailed and everything was really you knew what you had to do and what your job was, and but it was brought over really in a relaxed way. But he expected your professionalism to be at the top, you know. So Hiddink.
Just following up on that, just very quickly, if there was a manager that you hadn't played under, that you wish you could, past or present, who would it be?
Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah, I would have wanted to play for Pep. Yeah, Jurgen Klopp is very close as well.